Let's check out some common Magic the Gathering cards together, shall we? See if they're any good in the Pauper format. We'll start with Daybreak Chimera. I always used to say Shimra when I saw this because, you know, that's what it looked like to me. But it is pronounced Chimera. 3 and double white for a 3/3 Chimera. And this spell costs X less to cast, where X is your devotion to white. And it flies. I didn't say it flies, but it definitely flies. Has wings, has flying. I don't know. It's okay, right? This was probably halfway decent in limited, but in in Pauper though, 3/3 flyer for it's only gonna cost the uncolored pips here. So you could get a 3/3 flyer for 2 white mana. Do you put that in like a white weenie deck? I don't think you do. I think you wanted to. You want something that's just a little bit more impactful than this. It's close. It's kind of close for what is essentially just a French vanilla 3/3 flyer. Being able to get that down to 2 mana is all right. I mean, you hear how much I talk about Tolarian Terror, but there's also like Gurmag Angler. There's lots of cards that will find ways to cheapen themselves. And when you get them cheap enough, Mirror Enforcer, that's another good one with Affinity. You see that all these kinds of creatures show up in Pauper all the time as really good creatures. I don't think this one quite makes the cut. A 3/3 flyer for if it was 4/4, if it was 4/3, hey, maybe we could get there, but I don't think we can get there with this amount. And we'll end up giving this thing. I mean, man, it really isn't bad though. It's like a 3.4. Next up on the list is Healer of the Glade. It's a 1 single green mana for 1/2 elemental, and when this creature enters, you gain 3 life. That's actually kind of a pretty good deal for green. We see creatures, white creatures played in sideboards. What is it, like Daybreak Cleric or Daybreak something? Daybreak. Nope, it's not Daybreak. Daybreak was the Chimera, idiot. Of course. Devoted something? Nope. All right. Well, there's a 1 and a white for a white cleric guy who heals you 4 life when he comes into play, and that gets played in sideboards because 4 life is a pretty solid amount of life for a relatively cheap cost. 1 single mana for a guy who can do a little bit of blocking. This could block a couple of things. Certainly on turn 1, it blocks some stuff. It blocks a goblin or whatever. It blocks a Voldaran Epicure. And the gaining the 3 lives, kind of not bad. Like this is a perfectly fine card. I don't think it shows up. I mean, I haven't seen it in a list before, but I could. The thing is, green has enough other cards that gain you life either incidentally or gain you a decent amount of life with another effect, like Pulse Marasa. That's 3 mana, but it lets you return a creature or land from your graveyard back to your hand, and you gain 6 life. 6 is pretty significant. There are other cards that make food tokens and things like that, but just entering and gaining 3 life. This really isn't terrible. It's really not. I think if you're in a pauper deck, specifically a green pauper deck, maybe not necessarily mono green, but heavy green, I would say. And you don't have a lot of low end creatures that make sense for your deck. Popping a couple of these guys in there, even as sideboard pieces, maybe not the worst thing. I'm kind of surprised how much I think this guy is all right. I'll give him a 3.9, I think. I think he's all right. I think he's quite all right. Foil is 2 and double blue for an instant. You may discard an island card and another card rather than pay the spell's mana cost, and you counter a target spell. So this is a free counter spell. Free-ish. I mean, you can cast it for 0 mana, which is a big deal. Discarding an island and another card puts you way down on card advantage to do that. It also requires that you have at least 2 cards in your hand and you're willing to give those 2 cards up, one of them being a land. This is asking a lot for a free spell. If free spells are still free spells, still incredibly powerful, but a counter spell that costs 4 is really bad. So you want to cast this for free, but if you cast this for free, you're also kind of getting a bad deal. Yeah, I don't know about foil. It is nice that it's in Mystery Booster 2. As I think it only comes in foil in Mystery Booster 2, which is a good joke, like holofoil. I mean, that's a good little gag there. Yeah, I don't think foil's all that good, honestly. Free spells are incredibly powerful, but this is asking a lot of you as the player to give up for that free spell. It has to be a really devastating spell for you to give up that many resources. And I think in Pauper, there aren't that many spells that are, you have to counter this or you completely lose the game. There are some, but I don't think there are enough to make foil worth it, where a spell pierce or a force spike or even just a straight up counter spell are probably just better options. Like, hold on to your mana, use your counter spell instead of using all your mana and then throwing away all of your cards. It is interesting, though, that if you are playing Tolarian Terror, some kind of terror deck, this puts two card puts an island in, which doesn't matter as much, but it does put this card in the graveyard and another card that you get to discard. So you get to discard probably another sorcery or instant, and that gives you more that you have in your graveyard for your terrors for the turn after, or for that turn for that matter. Interesting, but I don't know. It's really hard to say that free spells are bad, but this one I think kind of is. That being said, I'll give it a 3.5. I don't feel good about that. I think it probably deserves a little bit lower, but I think the power of a free spell won't let it go lower than 3.5, especially when it's a counter spell. Jackhammer is 1 in a red for an artifact. It's an equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. Equips for 2. That is a very normal Magic card, outside of it being called a Jackhammer. But other than that, 2-mana equipment, 2 power boost, equips for 2. Normal. Very normal. And very underwhelming. Not going to show up in any deck. I probably would have a real hard time putting this in a limited deck, honestly. So yeah, I don't love it. We'll give this a 1.3. Keep moving on to Murderous Compulsion, which is 1 in a black for a sorcery. Destroy target tapped creature. It also has Madness for 1 in a black. We've discussed Madness in the past. There are lots of ways of making Madness work, of enabling Madness through various discard outlets. All can be pretty good. And Madness does allow you to play cards that wouldn't normally be instants at instant speed, because you have to, if you pay the Madness cost, you cast it right then. Mayhem, which they added for Spider-Man, which is similar to Madness. The timing rules of that work differently, to where you would still have to cast a Mayhem card whenever it could reasonably be casted from a timing perspective. So it's fine that this card is a sorcery most of the time, because if you're discarding it, you get to play it like it's an instant. Interesting little workaround there. I think that's kind of cool card design, even though it's a little bit confusing potentially. That, oh, I can now play my sorcery at flash speed, which isn't that just an instant? And it is, but they're forcing you into that extra hoop. Like, it's... You could reword this card as 1 and a black for a sorcery with, destroy target type creature, and then say it has kicker. Kicker, discard a card. I guess that doesn't even work either, right? Because I don't know. This is how the card works. But the idea is that you could discard it, then you can use this as instant speed. Destroying the tapped creature is the real killer here. That's the one that makes this card probably not something you generally want to play. White gets this ability all the time, just as a way to make their kill spells worse than black kill spells. And I think forcing black to go through these hoops to destroy a tapped creature is kind of bad. Like, for this mana, you could just play cast down. Cast down's an instant, destroys a target non-legendary creature, but it destroys it whenever you want. You don't have to worry about discarding the card to get the madness. So I think you just play that over this. There are plenty of madness cards that are good, but you don't necessarily just play cards with madness because you have to play cards with madness. Sometimes you can just play better cards. I think this is one of those cases where you can just play better cards. We will give it a 2.7. I mean, it is still a kill spell. So it's not bad, but you can do better. Next up is Goblin Instigator for 1 and a red. You get a 1/1 Goblin Rogue. When this creature enters, you create a 1/1 red Goblin creature token. He's okay. 2 mana for 2 1/1s. That could be kind of cool. Red has a number of Impact Tremor style effects that can ping your opponents. This will give you a couple pings when your creature enters the play. All right. I think we've just kind of gotten slightly better cards. We've gotten similar red cards. What's the rally one? It's a Lord of the Rings card, but it puts 2 humans into play. But then I think it gives all humans haste, and that's just a little bit better. Unless you're specifically in Goblin strategies, and even Goblin strategies, I think you have a number of other Goblin cards that do something similar to this, but just the tiniest hair better. And you play all of those, and you don't end up playing this one. But I think it is perfectly playable. It just might be like your extra copies after you've already used those other cards and still want more of these. And maybe you will want more of these effects, and maybe you won't. Let's give this a 2.8. No, I think it's better than that. Let's give this like a 3.2. It's only slightly better than that, but it is better. Okay, I love this card. I don't know if it's very good, but I do love this card. It's Reprobation. Reprobation is 1 and a white for an enchantment aura. It enchants a creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a coward with base power and toughness 0/1. It does keep all of its super types, so it could still be a legendary creature and all that kind of stuff, but it loses all of its other creature types and all other type stuff that it could be. I mean, for this much mana, you could just play spells that completely get rid of the creature. You could play Journey to Nowhere, which exiles the creature completely. That's generally going to be better than playing Reprobation. You play Reprobation because it's funny. You play Reprobation so you can call your opponent's creatures a coward. I think that's fun. but it doesn't make the card better in this case. I would. There are cards not at common rarity, maybe some at common rarity, but there are cards that have, cowards can't block warriors, and there are a number of cards that can make cards into cowards. A lot of them are red, some of them are white, like Reprobation here. And I think it would be really fun. I would actually love to build a commander deck that is all about turning all of your opponent's creatures into cowards, so you can swing in and not be blocked. But there are ways to do that in mono red. But I really would like I would really like there to be ways to do that in Boros, so then I could play a card like Reprobation and feel good about it. But I can't really play it in Commander. Can't really play it in Pauper either. There's just better options, and you'll play those instead. So we'll give Reprobation a 2.6. Burning Tree Vandal is 2 and a red for a 2/1 human rogue. It's got Riot, which means it either enters with your choice of a 1/1 counter or haste. And whenever this creature attacks, you may discard a card, and if you do, you draw a card. It's kind of a normal Magic card, right? 3 mana could get you a 3/2, or it could get you a 2/1 with haste. Giving it haste gives it the ability to use its attack trigger right away, or you can wait and get its attack trigger when you have something a little beefier. I do like that it's a May discard, though it would be nice if it was kind of more like a fear of isolation, or not isolation, fear of missing out, which is a forced discard, but if you don't have any cards in your hand, you still draw the card anyway. So it could technically be card draw in that instance, but it doesn't do that here. That does make the card worse. I think the card is just kind of normal. Red has enough other ways of discarding and drawing that you don't need to play creatures like this. I guess if you needed that kind of effect on a creature, okay, but I don't think you do. I don't think you do need that. I think more often than not, you're fine to play Grab the Prize and all of those variations that do something like that over something like Burning Tree Vandal. And it puts this card in a bit of an awkward place where it just doesn't really go anywhere. We will give this a 2 point. I'll give it a 2.6. I still don't think the card is all that good, but I do like how many options you get with it. Of whether you put the 1/1 counter, whether you give it haste, when it attacks, what kind of decisions you make there. I think there's some fun mental game going on when you play a card like this, but it is still a pretty normal Magic card and not a super impactful one. Next up is Coral Net. Ooh, good old card that has only been printed in Torment. And it's 17 cents, so it's probably pretty bad, but I do like the art and I like the idea of a Coral Net. So what does the card actually do? It's a single blue mana for an enchantment aura. It enchants a green or a white creature. An enchanted creature has, at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice this creature unless you discard a card. All right. So the reason it's probably only been printed once is that it is a color hoser. Wizards doesn't really do those much at all anymore, honestly. So enchanting only a couple colors of creature is a little bit rough. I'd say these are pretty good colors to do it to, though. That, red or black, they're going to be able to sacrifice their creatures more often. And it doesn't work on other blue creatures, but blue doesn't have a ton of amazing creatures either. So white and green, they generally are less interested in sacrificing the creatures. White can sacrifice their creatures for sure, but they're going to be a little less inclined to do that. So, I mean, what are the creatures this potentially goes on? Generous Ent, the 5/4 dragon that gives you the initiative in green, the Annoyed Altasaur, things like that. There's options. there's options for it. And white, there's probably fewer options. I think mostly your opponent's just going to let the creature die. They don't care about individual creatures all that much, especially in white. But even in green, I don't think giving your opponent the choice generally means, well, almost always means, is that the opponent is going to pick the thing that is better for them in the moment, and that is not as good for you, right? So you want to have more of the options on your end. You want to make the choices because you can make better decisions for what is good for you in that moment, rather than your opponent making the best decision for themselves in that moment. So I don't love these kinds of cards. I mean, I do like these cards, and it feels like you're just torturing your opponent. What do you want to do, buddy? Sack the creature or give up a card? Your choice. But from like an actual trying to win the game perspective, this is not very good. It is a single blue mana, but for that you can play Unable to Scream, and that gets rid of a creature a lot better than something like this does. This does potentially force discards, which is nice, but yeah, I don't love it. I also don't love that it's at the beginning of upkeep. That probably makes sense of when you would. That's the best timing rule for it, but I would rather have it be at the beginning of the first main phase. So your opponent's already drawn their card, and then they have to, if they were empty-handed before that, hellbent, what we call that. If they were hellbent before that, then they have to discard that card they just got or sacrifice the creature. If they're hellbent at the beginning of their upkeep, they just have to sacrifice the creature because of this, because they can't discard the card. Anyway, that's a lot of talk for a card that is not particularly good. We'll give it a 1.6. Final card of the day. Ooh, it's a good one. Eviscerator's Insight is 1 and a black for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you sacrifice an artifact or a creature. You draw 2 cards, and it also has flashback for 4 and a black, which means you can cast this card from your graveyard for that flashback cost, plus any other additional costs, like this one has the additional cost of having to sacrifice an artifact or creature. Then you exile this spell when you cast it for its flashback cost. So this card is really good in affinity style decks, any kind of black affinity deck where you're playing a lot of artifacts. You make a bunch of tokens, whether they're foods or clues or even treasures, and then you can sacrifice those and get cards for them. This particularly works well with something like Eager Wellspring, which that's a 2-mana artifact. When it comes onto the table, you draw a card, and when it goes in your graveyard, you draw a card. So with Eviscerator's Insight, you sacrifice the Eager Wellspring, you draw 2 cards from this, and then you draw a 3rd card for the Eager Wellspring going to the graveyard. You can mix this with blue and have the Cryogen Relic, which works very much like the Eager Wellspring. And in that instance, you still do the sacrifice, and you basically get to draw 3 cards. That is what people refer to as the Pauper Ancestral Recall, is like playing 1 spell and drawing 3 cards. Pretty good deal. And you get to do it because you're sacrificing some little things. This one doesn't get, it gets played. You don't really play 4 ofs of this like you do for like Fanatical Offering, or back when it was not banned in Pauper, Deadly Dispute. You would play 4 Deadly Disputes all day long. But you would generally play like 1 or 2 of these in a lot of your deck lists, because if you have the ability to mill in your deck, mill yourself, this is not a bad card to mill because you still have the option to use it with the flashback cost. Or even if you can't mill, having 1 of these in your deck allows you to cast it 1 time, it's just in your graveyard, and it's ready to go if you ever needed it again. So it's kind of like having 2 spells in 1, and that's pretty cool. Even though 5 mana for this effect is not cheap at all, but you're also presumably playing this a whole lot later in the game for its flashback cost, where you probably do have the mana to burn on that, especially if you know you're going to get 2 cards at the end of the day. This is pretty good. It shows up in Jund Wildfire decks. It shows up in Mono Black Sacrifice decks. It shows up in like Grixis Affinity kind of decks. You see a lot of these kinds of cards, and this is one of the better ones solely because it has flashback. We're going to give this a pretty good score. It's going to get like I'm going to give this a 7, straight up 7. It's not the best one of these. I think Fanatical Offering is probably the best one now. But this probably makes an argument for the second best one. It's really good. It's really good. Do we want to do a bonus card? We're ending so high right now. Do we really want to throw that away? Let's throw that away. Get Geist Wave. I think Geist Wave is playable. Let's see. Geist Wave is 1 and a blue for an instant. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. If you controlled that permanent, draw a card. It's okay. It's okay. We actually just got an avatar card that basically does this, right? What if I just copied this text and put it in here? Yeah, there we go. Boomerang Basics. Uncommon, so you don't get to play it in Pauper, but single blue mana, so better. Although this is a sorcery, and the other one's instant speed, right? Yeah. Geist Wave is instant speed, so you got to weigh those things, except that you don't because only one of them is available in Pauper. Geist Wave, I think, is pretty decent. I think it was a couple of episodes ago, maybe one episode ago, where I was talking about my Dimir Cryogen Relic Kenku Artificer blinking artifact stuff, and Geist Wave is a card I considered. I think I ended up doing more flickery stuff than bounce back to my hand stuff, but it's pretty good. This is also a pretty good option. Yeah, it's just a good card. You like Orzhov Blade decks. You didn't play this because you didn't really feel the need to splash into that third color to make it Esper. And I think Orzhov Blade had enough options to bounce things back to your hand. But with the addition of Cryogen Relic as a really nice blue card that wants to be bounced a lot or flickered a lot to get a bunch of card advantage, you've seen that card be so good that a lot of Orzhov Blade decks have moved into Esper Blade decks or Esper bounce decks at this point. And Geist Wave becomes more of an option at that point. Is it like the best one? Maybe not, but it's one of the few at instant speed at that point, and that gives it a little bit more value. So I think Geist Wave is actually a perfectly playable card. I just haven't quite seen the deck list for it, but I kind of know where it would go and how you would use it, and that's appealing. It's got an appealing use case, and it's just whether you want to actually use it or not. It also has a double feature version if you like the black and white. I tend to not like the black and whites. I think I like them a little bit more for black cards because they have the purple on the sides that I think looks kind of nice. The blue's okay, but I would probably just get the normal ones. Anyway, this card gets... I'll give this card like a 5.3. 5.3 seems pretty good. So we'll end off on a still halfway decent card. That's it for today. We will see you tomorrow with more Pauper cards. Till then.